Testing. Yeah. Yeah. We got around it.
Yeah, there's a few big things on the ticket. Hope you weren't planning on getting dinner early tonight. You can eat those weird hot dogs that you like. What did you tell me? Hot dogs is something funny. Something weird.
Hot dog? Fish stick?
Yeah. It was something strange.
Oh, when I was in the Boy Scout, we used to have hot dogs.
No, that wasn't it, but that's weird.
Thanks for reminding me. I don't know. Wonder which one we were talking about.
This is the Rich Banks Senior Hall, Senior Building. So that one is public.
Yeah, I watched that building come out.
That one's just a repair.
Another 5 degrees or something. It will be tomorrow. They say it'll be 104 or something with the heat in there. You'll be comfortable.
Pearl Stain, rain at Pearl Stain.
I was going to say that's a great.
That one or is that?
I don't know. It's the humidity too. Yeah. Told him welcome back. No, I told him welcome back. Glad to see him back on the days. Well, we had 1 month where we didn't have a meeting too. So. Guys ready? Good afternoon, folks, and welcome to the July 13th Design Development Review Commission. Just as a reminder here, would everybody make sure that their cell phones are turned to vibrate or turned off, please? So again, welcome, and we call the meeting to order. The Commission is made up of volunteers with expertise or interest in historic preservation and design. We generally meet on the second Thursday of the month to review cases. The commission is supported by the city's urban planning and historic preservation staff who are here today. Please let them know if you have any questions, taking care not to impede the proceedings. The meeting generally proceeds with staff calling the case and describing it. The applicant may also come forward to add to the basic description of the request if necessary. If so, please try to keep that presentation to less than 10 minutes. The commissioners will then have the opportunity to ask questions. After this period, I will ask if there is anyone in the audience who wishes to speak for or against the proposal, and audience comments shall be kept to 2 minutes per person. If there is, the applicant will have an opportunity to respond, and this rebuttal shall be kept to 5 minutes. In most of the cases, we will make a decision tonight after all information has been presented. If your case is denied, or if you feel that our decision was made in error, you and anyone with standing have the opportunity to appeal within 30 days of the decision. All decisions of this commission are based on existing guidelines and ordinances. If you plan to speak about a specific project, you must have signed in. The sheet is at the back of the room or at the podium. Please note that these meetings are streamed live. They are recorded and broadcast, so please use discretion with any personal information you choose to share in the course of these proceedings. And once again, all motions and decisions are made while applying all of the facts to all of the guidelines. Now, if there's anyone here who plans to speak in these proceedings, would you please stand and raise your right hand? Do you affirm to tell the truth in these proceedings? Okay, thank you very much. Have a seat. Would you please call the roll?
Mr. Bachnight? Mr. Broom?
Here.
Mr. Daniel? Excuse me, and Ms. Fuller-Wilt?
Here.
Mr. Heiler? Mr. Savory?
Here.
Mr. Wynn?
Present.
We have quorum.
Thank you very much. Now, does the agenda still stand, please?
Excuse me. We've had one change since publication. Under the design portion of the consent agenda, 2109 Sumter Street, a request for design approval for renovations in the North Main Corridor Design District has been withdrawn.
Thank you. The consent agenda, or the Design Development Review Commission, uses a consent agenda to approve non-controversial or routine matters by a single motion and vote. Examples of such items include residential site improvements such as fences, minor exterior changes, or signage. If a member of the DDRC or the general public wants to discuss an item on the consent agenda at the beginning of the meeting, that item is removed from the consent agenda and considered during the meeting. The DDRC then approves the remaining consent agenda. Would you read the remaining items, please, on the consent agenda?
Certainly. Under the historic portion of the agenda, we have 3101 Lindsay Street, a request for a certificate of design approval for additions in the Irwin Protection Area A. 1202 Main Street, which is a request for preliminary certification of the Bailey Bill for an individual landmark. 1321 Lady Street, which is recertification of the Bailey Bill for an individual landmark. And that is everything under the consent agenda.
Thank you very much. And we'll note for the record that Ms. LaToya Great has arrived here to join the commission. Is there anyone wishing to remove an item from the consent agenda, either on the commission or from the audience? Is there a motion to accept the consent agenda?
So moved.
We have a motion to approve the consent agenda and a second. Any discussion? Will you call the roll for a vote, please?
Mr. Bachnight? Yes. Mr. Brim?
Yes.
Mr. Daniel? Ms. Fuller-Wilt?
Yes.
Ms. Great? Yes. Mr. Heiler? Mr. Savory?
Yes.
Mr. Wynn?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. The consent agenda has been approved as read. And at this time, I guess we'll move forward to the regular agenda, starting with the design section. Will you introduce the first case, please?
The first case on the regular agenda is 3700 North Main Street and 1200 Elmore. This is a request for certificate of design approval for new construction in the North Main corridor overlay. This project, called the Veranda at North Main, is a project of the Columbia Empowerment Zone for affordable senior housing. The property combines two parcels between Miller and Elmore on North Main Street, just south of the North Main Plaza development. The resulting property is approximately 1.9 acres, and the proposal is for a 3-story, 76,000 plus or minus square foot building of 58 residential units and provides 47 parking spaces. The applicant successfully obtained a parking variance from the Board of Zoning Appeals on June 13th. And I will note, this project will also require a site plan approval. However, it's coming to you next month, so just keep that in mind. That will be within your purview next month. And staff finds that this substantially does meet the design guidelines of the North Main corridor and recommends approval of the request with a few conditions. I won't read those now, but I think the applicants are here to make a presentation and answer any questions.
Thank you. And I will also note that we are here on the commission in receipt of a considerable number, I haven't counted them all, but a very good number of letters in support of this project. At this time, would the applicant like to come forward?
I'm Felicia Maloney with Columbia Empowerment Zone, and we have our team with us, our developer, architect, and our civil engineer, in case anyone has any questions. Otherwise, this is, as she stated, a 58 senior apartment unit, mixed income. We feel that it complements the site next door very well. We have a lot of senior services on site, and we have additional parking next door as well.
Thank you, Ms. Maloney. Would either of you like to add anything to this? You'll state your name, please.
My name is David Robertson. I'm representing the architect on the project. So it's like I said, it's a 58-unit project, 47 parking spots, 3-story building. And some of the main things we try to do with this project was actually connect it to its context. So as you can see, we have several entrances coming off the building, connecting it to some of the adjacent development. And we've provided some outdoor amenities for the seniors so they can enjoy the good outdoors. And we've really tried to create this facade along Main Street to connect it to the pedestrian access. And we've also provided this nice knee wall along the side of Main Street, so these step downs, and it all connects to the site. And we tried to respect our context and being in the Eau Claire district with a nod to the kind of brick they've used on Eau Claire. So we've kind of got it where it's sort of pushing things forward, but at the same time, we've kind of respected where we are in its context.
Thank you, sir. Nothing further. Very good. Is there anyone here who, or are there any questions from the commission, I guess, at first?
I had one question, which is, I think, unless I missed something, that in some of the drawings, the beige material is called out as metal panel, and in another drawing is called out as cement fiberboard. Which one are you planning?
Yeah, well, it'll be. We found out that metal panels are going to be quite expensive, so we're going to do fiber cement. Okay. It'll give us a similar look, but it'll be in the same kind of material. But
let me just ask you one more question, and I don't have a strong feeling about this, but one of the things that we try to do is part of the guidelines is to be restrained with the use of pallet materials. Yes. And it just strikes me that that's the one piece that kind of doesn't seem to fit with the rest of the palette quite as much as the rest of it. To me, looks very much in keeping with the palette of that North Main corridor, but that beige, and there's not much of it, and it's just sort of seems like it's out of place.
It's sort of an accent feature. It's sort of kind of, you know, usually when you see these kind of buildings, they're aluminum clad metal panels, but like, you know, for an affordable senior housing deal, we decided to go with fiber cement.
No, I'm not, it's not the
You're talking
material,
about
it's
just
the
the
color.
color?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we kind of chose that color because it's different than the rest of it, so it's kind of an accent piece. It says, here I am, I'm different kind of thing. So,
I don't know if other commissioners feel about that.
yeah. Sure, we'll definitely take that into consideration. They're doors. They're operable doors.
Anyone else? Any other questions of the commission? No? Is there anyone in the audience who would like to speak in favor of or opposition to? Please come forward if you would, one at a time. And I'll ask each of you or all of you in concert right now if you've been sworn in. Were you here for the swearing in?
Yes.
Okay, and you've signed the...
I did.
Okay, very good. State your name, please, and proceed.
My name is Betsy Newman, and I'm the president of the Hyatt Park Keenan Terrace Neighborhood Association. And I would like to say on behalf of the association that we're very much in favor of this project, and we very much appreciate the developer having come a couple of times to share the plans with our neighborhood association. We feel that the developer has really incorporated our thoughts into the design. And that said, I personally have a couple of things that I'd like to say. This is not on behalf of the neighborhood association. But it is my feeling that because we are in a low-income, majority-minority part of town, that sometimes we don't get the consideration that other parts of town might get. And our neighborhood association, and well, I'm speaking for myself, I would like to see, I think this is a great project. Well, I think it's a very good project. And I would like to see it be a great project. I would like to see everything that's built in North Main, north of the trestle, just be fantastic. And I have a couple of suggestions that I think would make this development really great. And the first one has to do with the parking lot and the detention pond. And I don't know if you could bring that slide up, but there's a big detention pond in the bottom right, bottom left-hand corner of the parking lot. And yes, thank you. And I understand that these are necessary, and I am all in favor of the idea. However, I think this is, first of all, there's nowhere on this property now for elderly folks or the folks who live there to gather outside. And I think that's a real shame for people who are somewhat restricted in their movement. Not everyone drives, and so I have a suggestion. And also there's a grand tree somewhere in the neighborhood of the bottom left-hand corner here. I would like the developer to consider moving the retention pond or building a deck over it. I would love to see that much space devoted to a place where people can gather and enjoy the out of doors. And why waste a grand tree in South Carolina when we need all the shade we can get? So that is, I think that would so improve this layout. And the other point that I would like to make is that the exterior, the panels that were just discussed, do not fit into the aesthetic of the neighborhood. The aesthetic is entirely brick. The print building is brick. The development next door, which I can't think of the name of it right now, the commercial development next door, which was built, is brick. And this looks to me like the development down on Canal Side, and I understand that this is a kind of popular design now, but I think it would fit in with the neighborhood much better if it were all brick and even had some detail like the print building has.
Thank you, Ms. Newman.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your statement. We
Yes,
have
you're
someone
welcome.
else who would like to speak. Please come forward.
This is Lyman Munson. He's the vice president of our neighborhood association.
Very good. Thank you.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon,
I
sir.
am Lyman Munson, the Vice President of Keenan Terrace, Hyde Park Neighborhood Association, and have led a group of neighbors who've been involved in development in our neighborhood. And as Betsy said, we're a neighborhood that does not see major developments every month. So we're excited about this. We think this is a great idea. Within that, we're pleased that we do have the design district, and a number of us did participate in that process of deciding what North Main Street would look like. That went on about 9 years ago. And overwhelmingly, we talked about brick. We talked about building on the infrastructure, the historic infrastructure that we've got. Town Hall, Eau Claire Town Hall, the seminary building, the print building, where I think you may have met at other times, as well as the adjoining property that's previously been developed, North Main Street Plaza. All of those were 100% detail-oriented brick buildings. Lots of not just plain brick, but offsets and things that give it a period look. I certainly hope that stucco and cement board are not part of the final plan for this. The second comment that I have relates to an entrance on North Main Street. And I think your guidelines talk about the major street having a major entrance. And I don't believe that an entrance going to a patio at the corner of Main and North Main actually complies with what I would call a grand entrance to what we hope will be a grand building. Our thought is that the grand entrance on North Main would walk right through the center of the building. Common area amenities would be part of that and could enter to the back of the building, or if you're parking in the back of the building, you could enter the center of the building. Right now, you have to go to the ends of the building to get into it. I think there should be an entrance. I think the apartment in the middle of the building could be relocated and easily accommodate that. The last thing that I wanted to mention was that I understand that this is a partial approval this time. We're not talking about the parking lot. We're not talking about, I understand that's supposed to come before you next month. And so if it's just a partial, we're just talking about the building.
We are doing the design guidelines, but not the site.
Not the site.
Not the site
Thank you
today.
very much.
Thank you, sir. Is there anyone else who would like to come and speak? Please come forward, state your name. Have you been sworn in and signed in?
Signed in.
Okay. Do you affirm to tell the truth in these proceedings?
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Hi, my name is Gareth Fenley, and I support this project. I live 3 blocks from the site, and over the past several years, I've been extremely involved in various plans to develop this site. Often I have made very significant objections that have helped to influence this plan to be delayed. However, at this point, I believe that we're ready to move forward. There may be some changes here and there, but basically, this is the project that we need for our community. I have just on Friday closed on purchasing a property that is on the same block as this site. So I now own property 2 lots away at 1218 Miller Avenue. And my interest in this site could not be more profound since I live on one side of the site and now have my property for commercial office leasing on the other side of the site on the same block. So I just want you to know that I give this project my enthusiastic full support. Thank you.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Would any of the applicants like to come forward and respond to any of the statements we've just heard?
Yes, my name is Daryl Jones. I'm with the Integral Group. We're the developer for the project. I know we're not doing the site plan review now, but I think we all have a common goal to save trees and have recreation area for the seniors. One limitation I do want to make the commission aware of is the project is financed with low-income housing tax credits from South Carolina Housing. One of the restrictions that they have put on us as in order to, or contingency to get their water credits, is no outdoor activity space. And the reason that came about was the proximity to the railroad. We had to do a noise study, and they feel like that's too much noise to have outdoor space. We do plan on contesting or asking for a waiver from that, because most of our communities, we do have outdoor activities, whether it's a gazebo, planting areas, or things like that. So although we're not showing it now, our intention is to try to lobby to have that as a part of the final plan. So,
thank you, sir. Yes, ma'am.
I'm Sabrina Odom with the North Columbia Business Association. I had no plans to speak, but...
Have you been sworn in?
Yes.
Okay, very good.
What I want to say is we're for the project. It's a very great project. And I also want to say that we're not a low-income quarter. We have mixed income in our quarter. And then the next thing I would like to say is we also have beautiful parks. And right across from this project is Higher Park, which the council now, the city council people are deciding now to give us money for this park. So I think the project is a great project. We got Irwin Park, the dog park is over there. We got Higher Park that is right across the street from it. So I just want to let y'all know that the NCBA is for this great senior citizen assistant project. We're trying to create a senior citizen hub. We have an OT school that is coming across from the seminary. And this project is very much similar, the design is very much similar to that project. And that's for senior citizens too. It's the only one in South Carolina. So I just want to clear up that our quarter is not a low-income quarter, and that we have mixed income in our quarter, and we love our quarter. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. And I see that there's one other person who'd like to come forward. Have you been sworn in, ma'am?
I have not.
Okay, would you raise your right hand? Do you swear to tell the truth in these proceedings?
I do. I hope that each of you...
State your name, please.
Oh, I'm sorry. My name is Christy Savage, and I'm president of the Eau Claire Community Council for the area. I think most of you, if not all of you, should have a copy of the letter that I sent to you with regard to the council's support of this project. We think it's a very important undertaking. It is one that we approve of. We have seen the kind of work that this developer has done in Atlanta. We visited several sites along with some of the people who are here in this room. We were very impressed, and we'd like to make sure that we go on record as a council as supporting this important project for the corridor.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Now, at this point, we will ask commissioners to ask questions or voice their opinions or decision or thoughts that would lead to a decision here, please. We've had several persons mention things such as the brick facade, the location of entrances, which are items that are within our purview.
depth that it would just come across as very, very busy on the street presence.
Mr. Heiler, could you lower your mic so we can hear you?
Thank you, Mr. Heiler. You've been able to hear him, I guess, for the most part.
That was it.
Okay. Anyone else?
Actually had a sort of along those lines, a question probably for the applicant, but I guess it would also be for some of the neighborhood members who were concerned about the materials, which is, it seems that, and it's not an uncommon thing to see in urban situations where the neighborhood is almost entirely brick. I actually designed a building just up the street and it's all brick, but not so much on the back. So my question is, it seems as if it wouldn't take too much to swap out most of the cement fiberboard, put brick on the front, and then put some of that in order to keep the proportion and balance and the cost the same, put some of the cement fiberboard back on the back. For instance, you've got a lot of ins and outs on the back, and I think, looking at the rear elevation, you've invested as much in the exterior materials on the back of the building as you have on the front of the building. So it seems as if one solution to address some of the community members' concerns would be to swap some of that out. So you have more brick on the front and less on the back, and you would have a real sense of front and back of the building. And to me, I think that combined with going to the something that doesn't stand out as much as that beige color on the front could also address some of Ryan's concerns as well. So if that would be something that would appease some of the concerns that I agree with, that the community members have about the lack of brick on the street facades, and also calm the building down a little bit, I think that might be a solution that would help everybody. I don't know how you feel about doing something like that, and I think that's something that could be handled in staff review.
I do have another question. The panels that we see between glass, is that spandrel or are those metal panels?
Well, it won't be spandrel glass because it's a vinyl window. So in that condition, you usually see a storefront and then a spandrel and then another storefront. So here it'll most likely be an infill panel clad with some kind of fiber cement in order to get that detailing and the waterproofing there. Because you'd have a hard time doing that out of storefront. Doing that out of vinyl windows. Yeah. And then trying to put something else in there.
Yeah. So there again, I think we're introducing just another material that I think would be just more complex than it needs.
Right. But you also got the opportunity, like you guys said previously, to put brick there.
Yeah.
As an infill material.
Yeah,
it doesn't have to be.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Sure. I think everybody loves brick.
Yeah.
And again, it would be a perfectly appropriate urban response to really invest your materials along the street fronts, and then downgrade a little bit on the back if you need to, in order to compensate for that.
Sure. And also, just another point, I think the scale of this building is a much different scale than the projects that were previously referenced. So when you start putting brick on a 3-story building that's a couple hundred feet long, I think it's got a little bit different feel to it than the smaller buildings that are broken up and all brick.
I think that the more uniform the materials are, actually the less aggressive the building becomes.
Sure.
Yeah, I agree. So I would also ask the question, where exactly is the entrance on the corner?
I'm sorry?
Where is the entrance on the corner? Because as you look at that canopy, the canopy itself is very, very heavy, and there's multiple bays
You're talking about visually heavy?
Yeah.
Let me get back to the plan. So you've actually got 2 entrances coming off of that outdoor plaza there, one coming off one way and one coming off North Main Street into the building there.
I might would suggest changing the canopy to one big wraparound and really try to emphasize the entrance.
All the way around the front side of the building?
Rather than doing that now, emphasize where you actually enter the building.
Would you suggest that it come all the way around to that third entrance? Is that what you're saying, or just wrap around to that corner?
Yeah, I think what I'm thinking is maybe eliminate part of the canopy and really highlight where you enter the building, because
make it a little bit more special.
Yeah.
Okay.
Any other thoughts from anyone else?
I have just a question for staff. Do these seem like suggestions that could be handled at the staff level?
Yeah, certainly.
Okay, and as we move forward then, if there's no other discussion here on the commission side, let me just add that we are taking note of the fact that this is for design approval only and not for site. But we're also taking note of the fact that this is related to loan restrictions that are being placed on this project, and so the concerns that have been voiced about moving the retention pond or an outside gathering place is something that we will not be making a decision or taking into consideration with our decision because of that aspect. So let's move forward. Is there a motion on this project at 3700 to 3706 North Main Street?
I move that we approve, subject to review or of the final details by staff, but move that we approve the design for 3700, 3706 North Main Street for this new construction project.
Thank you, sir. We have a motion to approve. Is there a second? We've got a second. Is there any further discussion?
Well, don't we need to, I think we need to add the specifics.
I think we should articulate, the conditions a little more specifically.
Okay.
Since they weren't listed all in the staff evaluation.
And you have some as well.
Right.
From the staff,
Yeah.
in addition to what we discussed.
Yes.
Okay.
Do I need to specify them, or do you?
We'll have that motion repeated or re-spoke, and but with the specifics of recommendations.
Yeah, I move that we approve the design for 3700, 3706 North Main Street, and I may need some help from my architect friends here. That one issue would be to try to address more brick on the front in lieu of the clapboard material or cement board material. Consideration of having a main entrance designated with maybe the, what am I trying to say? The entryway not having, be more designated on the Main Street side. Mr. Savory, can you help me here on that?
I'll help you.
Good.
With the condition of removing cement fiberboard from the street facades and placing it on the rear elevations of the building, with reduction of the canopies at the corners so that they more clearly address and highlight the corners. Did I get it? Also, that the glass be clear is required by the design guidelines, that there be shade trees and evergreen plantings along the front of the property, and that all details be deferred to staff.
I would also add in there that panels not be used between window sections.
Within the window compositions.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay. So we have a motion with recommendations. We are now looking for a second. We've got a second now with the amended motion. Any further discussion? There being none, would you call the roll, please, for a vote?
Mr. Bachnight? Yes. Mr. Broom?
Yes.
Mr. Daniel?
Yes.
Ms. Fuller-Wilt? Yes. Ms. Great? Mr. Heiler?
Yes.
Mr. Savory?
Yes.
Mr. Wynn?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you very much. The application's been approved. That'll take us to the next case, please, which is 1520 Senate Street.
The next case is 1520 Senate Street. This is a request for certificate of design approval for exterior changes to an existing building in the Design Development District. I'm just going to read the summary. I'm not sure that the applicant's here to answer questions, but maybe not make a presentation. This is a 19-story mid-century modern residential building. Let me get to it.
1 second. I believe you are the applicant. Very good. She is here.
Designed by Maynard Pearlstein, a prominent Charleston-born artist and architect. He designed a number of houses in Columbia in the mid-20th century, as well as high-rise residential properties. At 191 feet, Senate Plaza was one of the state's tallest buildings when it was completed. The building is clad in glazed brick panels. The primary north and south facade are broken up with windows and balconies, leaving small sections of the brick panels in between. The east and west elevations have continuous panels of glazed brick that are continuous for the height of the building. Over time, the method of attachment of these panels has begun to fail, and the east and west elevations are in need of replacement cladding. The architect has found a glazed brick oyster white spec that is very close to the original. The brick on the north and south facades will remain. The east and west facades will wrap the corner and continue for 3 brick lengths and 2.5 brick lengths, be toothed in with the existing brick. This detail is recessed at the corner balconies. The balcony railings and windows will remain. The stucco will receive a new finish coat to match the existing. So you can see the match, pretty good match to the original brick. And then staff has been working with them to try to pick out a mortar color that also matches what's existing. So the recommendation is to approve the request.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Would the applicant like to come forward and add to this description? Have you been sworn in and signed in? Okay. We'll have you sign here at the podium, and if you'll raise your right hand, then I can swear you in. Do you affirm to tell the truth in these proceedings? Thank you.
I just wanted to
state your name, if you would. I'm sorry.
My name is Lauren Ulmer. I'm the architect with Applied Building Sciences, representing the owner on this project. I just wanted to introduce myself and let the commissioners know that I'm here to answer any questions you may have. I've reviewed.
Speak up, please. Stay on the mic.
Speak up a little bit, please.
I've reviewed staff's evaluation report of the project, and I thought it was a good summary, and I don't have anything to add.
Thank you. Any questions from the commission?
I have a question about the finish coat. I'm not familiar with that. Could you just tell me what that is?
Sure. It'll be a coating. It's similar to paint, but it's specifically for use to recoat existing stucco. It'll be the same color of the existing stucco. It's manufactured by stucco manufacturers like Stowe or similar.
Thank you.
I have a question.
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Is the picture, the very first picture, showing the vertical crack, separation of the brick veneer? Is that pulling away from the brick ties?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir, it is. And based on our evaluation, there appear to be insufficient brick ties to begin with. And the primary reason for what you're seeing there, the pulling away, there are kind of 2 primary reasons. One is insufficient expansion joints in the building, and 2 is that the steel shelf angles that occur at each floor line are badly corroded. And so they're deteriorating, causing the large expanses of brick to bind. And so this is kind of the most severe and obvious deterioration is occurring at the corners. However, the binding is also causing some of the glazed facing to fall off of the individual brick units themselves.
Thank you. Mr. Saber?
I had one. Well, first of all, I was happy and relieved to see when I saw the site and saw the rectangle around this site that it wasn't to tear this building down.
Okay.
And our mid-century modern buildings in Columbia are a little bit in danger, and we have a lot of them, and Maynard Pearlstein was a prolific and talented architect, so as you obviously know. So
I'm quite fond of the building.
it's a very good building.
Yeah.
People don't necessarily recognize, I think, the value of these buildings, which will change in 50 years, but right now we're in the midst of it. The only question I had was, and I just recently finished renovation and addition to a 1965 building, and we found the exact brick in the exact brickyard, actually, still being produced. We matched the mortar, we put it in, and there's just one term, and it may not be exactly the term you mean, but we made the mistake, or our project manager made the mistake of instructing them to feather it in to the coursing. So, what ended up happening was, in fact, it was slightly different. It's been 50 years, and you can see this, jag where it's feathered in. I just wonder if you talked about bringing it back, I think, 2 to 3 feet, and it's obvious why you would. I'm wondering if it wouldn't be a better idea, rather than to feather it into saw cut, so that it would also potentially address the expansion issue, but it would also give a clean break between your brick as you come and you turn the corner, and then you have a clear saw cut to match up against the existing brick. Because I'm afraid if you feather it, you're going to see this jagged, there's going to be a little bit of difference between the bricks. It's a detail question, but...
I agree that there likely will be a difference between the new and the old, regardless of how well we were able to match the existing brick. I do think that, I don't believe it will be noticeable from the ground. It would be noticeable to one standing on the balcony. And just for clarification, it wasn't 2 to 3 feet, it was 2.5 and 3 stretcher courses or stretcher bricks in length in terms of the return. And normally I wouldn't question your suggestion at all. My concern is that the existing backup material on the wall after it makes that return changes. It changes from a 4-inch thick CMU block wall to, believe it or not, like a foam panel, like a rigid foam panel.
On the interior of the balcony.
Correct.
Yeah.
And the interior gyp board is adhered to that foam. And on the outside, it's pretty much brick.
Well, are you not creating an expansion joint then, therefore, anyway?
We are.
So that would be a straight line?
I believe our expansion joint, as we have it planned now, would occur I'd have to look at exactly where the expansion joint occurs relative to where we're planning to end that third stretcher brick. But absolutely, I mean, if we can make that work, we would certainly.
It seems like it would solve, especially now that to realize the substrate is completely different, weirdly completely different. It seems like it would solve a lot of problems for you, and I think aesthetically, I mean, the problem with the feathering brick too is the further away you get, actually, the more obvious it is. So, when you're right up on it, you don't necessarily notice. It's a suggestion. I think it might be a cleaner solution.
Yeah, I think it's a good suggestion, and we'll certainly look at it.
Ms. Alma, as a non-architect...
I'm sorry, excuse me. Pardon me for interrupting. If you could all please speak directly into your mics, you're having trouble hearing all of the commissioners when they speak.
Ms. Alma, as a non-architect, could you educate me? Are you going all the way from the ground to the top, or are you just doing every third course like you're saying?
It's all the existing brick runs from the second floor line all the way up to the top of the building. And we're planning to replace all of that on the east and west facades.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions of the commission? Is there anyone here in the audience who would like to speak for or against this application? Okay, there being none, thank you, ma'am. And is there any further discussion by the commission? Any additional input from staff? No? Well, we'll ask for a motion.
I'll make a motion.
Thank you, sir. Speak into your mic.
I move that we grant a certificate of design approval for 1520 Senate Street with the following conditions. One is that that they use the eggshell mortar. The other is that they give serious consideration to the return detail, potentially incorporating a saw cut expansion joint rather than feathering the new brick into the existing brick.
We have a second by Ms. Great. who I see might be sharing a mic with someone. So if you would, go ahead and state that second again, please.
Second.
Thank you. And any further discussion? There being none, you call the roll for a vote, please.
Mr. Bachnight? Mr. Broom?
Excuse me, yes.
Mr. Daniel?
Yes.
Ms. Fuller-Wilt?
Yes.
Ms. Great?
Yes.
Mr. Hyler? Yes. Mr. Savory?
Yes.
Mr. Nguyen?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you very much, ma'am, for your presentation, and we now have an approval for the request for certificate of design approval. That takes us to 1400 Lady Street.
Case number 3 on your agenda is 1400 Lady. This is a request for certificate of design approval for changes to an approved design in the City Center Design Development District. I'll give you a little bit of background. This building at the southeast corner of Lady and Marion Streets was designed by Upshur, Riley, and Boltman for the SC&G to consolidate their customer services and included a community meeting space. The building, built in 1970, has many of the typical features of mid-century institutional architecture. Heavy streamlined upper floors supported by slim columns and a light transparent base, strong geometric shapes and fixed windows, an asymmetrical entrance with a curved wall feature, and decorative abstract mosaic tile work. The building's strong horizontal orientation is reinforced by bold precast bands delineating each floor and punctuated by a repetitive pattern of windows with precast frames. As the new offices for First Presbyterian Church, the building has undergone extensive interior renovations as well as some exterior changes, such as renovation of first floor storefront, the addition of a stair tower on the south elevation, and an exterior canopy on the front of the building, which were reviewed and approved by staff in early 2016 as they were under the threshold for commission review and were in compliance with the City Center design guidelines. A portion of the proposal, removing windows on the upper 2 floors of the Lady Street facing elevation and replacing with storefront, was denied by staff and subsequently denied by the commission as it was found to be inconsistent with section 5.9.4 window replacement. Later, a new concept to add a glass atrium to the primary facade was proposed and found by staff to be inconsistent with section 5.9.4 window replacement and section 5.9 building additions, renovations, and demolitions, and was appealed to the commission in July of last year. The commission approved the design of the 3-story glass addition to the front with a solid sidewall and roof structure of translucent panels, conditional upon conserving the original brick panels in a way that would enable them to be reinstalled at a later date if the addition were to be removed. The mullion pattern and the joinery of the aluminum panels on the new atrium align with the strong horizontal precast bands of the existing building. The top of the L-shaped solid wall roof structure falls just below the parapet. And you can see the July approved atrium on the top. Then in September of 2016, the request came back to the commission for a change in material from translucent panels to aluminum panels with the same mullion pattern and joinery pattern. The top of the solid wall roof structure is elevated above the parapet. The material change was recommended for approval by staff and approved by the commission. This was on the consent agenda in September. The current proposal before the commission has a number of changes from the approved design. The glass box has been expanded 9 inches and the overhang by 16 inches. The aluminum structure has a slimmer profile. Glass floors have been added to each level of the addition. And there's 2 options. Option A, the aluminum panels now have a vertical running bond joint pattern rather than horizontal seams to align with the mullions. And option B, the aluminum panels have a running bond joint pattern in addition to the horizontal seams that align with the mullions. And the staff recommends denial of the request that is found to be inconsistent with section 5.9.10 of the City Center Design Guidelines. I believe the applicants are here to make a presentation.
Thank you, ma'am. Would the applicants like to come forward, please?
My name is Chuck Holtstrand, and I'm signed up and
sworn in. Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Good to see you.
Thank you.
My name is Marissa DiLoretto, here with the architects as well, and I have signed in and been sworn in.
Thank you.
So we appreciate your taking a look at this. We've been through, as you know, a long design process. And as you know, part of a long design process is refinement, and that's what we've been going through. So at this point, what we'd like to do is to carry you through a series of drawings that will illustrate how we've addressed some of those points that are of concern. This view gives an idea of the overall overarching idea of connecting this new building glassway to the terrace and sidewalk of the street. One of the big objectives that we really like in the guidelines is the idea of creating active space in the building that ties in with the outdoor space along the streetway. So you can see that the idea of this glass area at the entrance reaching out to the street, to the sidewalk, is accentuated by the metal canopy that surrounds it and also reaches out toward the street. That's a common theme of all the pieces of the building around the entries, and we believe it really fits in with the expression of the original building, which in a similar way can, well, I guess you can't see if I point to something. These slides are in a different order, so I'm trying to find the one that might help us. This may help. This illustrates a sense of how the original building on the right-hand side had a deep overhang at the street terrace frontage. There's a vertical element with the concrete column, the horizontal element with the precast spandrel, which is echoed in the vertical and horizontal movement that we see in the new entry window and frame. And part of the idea of stretching this a bit further is about 14 inches more overhang toward the street on the metal assemblage. That 14 inches allowed the proportions to be a little bit stronger in relating to the existing building and having that sense of reaching out to the street, giving that sense of shelter that leads you visually into the building, and that inside-outside connection is much stronger. I think this picture also helps us see the idea that with the glass floors at each second and third floor level, it's allowed now people to actually step out near the glass, to be seen from the street, and that also strengthens that idea of the programming active space that the guidelines are looking for. We really want people to be engaged as they walk down the sidewalk, as they spend time on the terrace, with the idea that this is a building that's open to them, that's welcoming to the community, and they could go upstairs where we see people standing near the glass and participate in a library that's open to any visitor from the community. Or on the top floor where there's a reception space for the offices on the third floor that also could allow anyone to come in to step out to the glass, to see the view, to see the street, and to feel connected to the community. So we think that inside-outside relationship is vital, and we don't believe that the glass floor takes away from seeing the existing building, which we think is very important.
I think one thing that you noticed in an earlier picture as well is, and was mentioned earlier, the increase of the glass to come 9 inches closer to the street was to allow for an addition of a door on the first floor there where people can move from inside to outside very easily, and that is a public space that we have in there that people from the street can activate the street life as well as the first floor activities. And then the increase of the canopy, the 14 inches that was mentioned, this side also receives a lot of sunlight and will help to improve the energy efficiency inside that space, which in this area is very important, of course, as you know.
If there's ever a 100-degree day, we want that sheltering shadow on the glass. We also noted that as we studied the metal panels on the entry wall, that there were a couple ways that we could manage that. One is to accentuate the horizontal lines that you see, the two green lines that align with the precast spandrel, and you see the secondary lines, the sort of staccato green lines above the floor level, which align with the glass. where the window mullion has the same pattern of staccato nature that we see on the metal panel. At the same time, we see where the reddish color is the idea of sort of repeating the idea of the window spacing. We wanted to get that character into this building as well. Now, the difference with the other panel system is that instead of running a continuous horizontal band at the precast level, we are breaking that band so that we still follow suit with that alignment, which the guidelines are looking for. But we're doing it in a way that we think is really a stronger statement for creating a fabric out of this metal wall and still allowing it to fit in with the existing. And we noted that on the existing that there's always a balance between the horizontal features such as the precast spandrel and a very strong series of vertical features with the windows and the brick panels. And that we feel is reflected in the nature of the metal wall panel.
Well, thank you, sir. And ma'am, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. We'll answer questions if needed.
Yes.
I might also mention that we have a number of people that are supporting this project from the church's viewpoint. I'm sure they'd be happy to all speak, but I'll speak for them. They're very excited about this improvement to the cityscape of their building.
Thank you. And we will ask if they would like to speak at the appropriate point. Are there any questions from any of the commissioners?
I had a couple. One is you talk about the glass floors, but in our packet it was referred to as transparent, but surely you're not proposing transparent glass floors.
No, it's actually translucent. It has some transparency, but it's distorted enough that there's privacy.
You can't see anything through them.
There's privacy for people that are standing on the glass.
The other question that I had, which it wasn't in the in our packet, but you made reference to shading the glass, but the glass faces north, so I'm not sure I understood what that meant.
Yeah, the glass, we recognize the glass almost faces north, but it faces enough toward northwest that we are really depending on the projecting wall and canopy to help shade it.
I don't think that's...
We've done sun studies on it.
You mean the panels that are to the east shade the glass when the sun gets over to the west? Or, I'm sorry, that's the east panels. My office is a block away and it faces north. There's just not very much sun that comes in from that side.
Yeah, we've been observing it and have done the sun studies on it, and based on what we have seen with our sun studies, we need this projection to give us that shading. And it is really only in the summer that we get that issue, but in the wintertime it's fine, but we're more concerned about the summertime heat.
I have a question regarding that. If shade is of a concern, why only shade the middle of the building and not the rest of the building on that side?
Well, you're talking about the first floor windows?
You're saying that the canopy that you want, one of the reasons you want this structure added is to shade the building, but it's not, the shade would not be reaching to the one side nor to the other.
Okay, what we're trying to do is shade the large glass window. I might call it a super window on the street. That large glass area, the whole intent of that is to open the building up to the street. Before that was done, essentially the little vertical windows make the building feel closed off. So that is a particular area because it's a large glass space that we want to shade, and that the vertical metal wall is what is primarily shading that.
Thank you.
Mr. Halstead, the first floor addition basically is a lobby. The second and third floor, does it open up into a room or is there a wall behind it? I'm a little...
Yeah, on the first floor, you can see that major entry, which is under the cover of the existing building. But walking by on the street, you would see actually all the way through the building as you pass it. On the second floor, you could only see into the library from the outside, but the library is intended to be a very open community viewing space. And then the third floor with the reception space, it's a large open area. It's really the only sort of public space on a private office floor. And so that's open to anyone to share.
Talk to us about how you're treating the existing building facade on that second and third floors behind the atrium or behind the glass.
Yes, what we're doing with the existing building facade, which had been developed in a previous session with DDRC, was to basically save the precast surround of the windows. It's sort of projecting window frame. And so we are saving those. They'll always be seen. We're actually saving the brick as well, but that comes down in pieces and is in storage to be saved. But the intent was that you can always recognize the really strong nature of that window surround, which in fact, once you see it in the library space or in the reception space, because now we're seeing the full depth of that precast fin that surrounds the windows, you'll see that there's a commonality between that fin and this big metal wall that surrounds the big window. They're actually in a similar proportion.
And what's the depth of the existing facade out to the glass?
It's about 6 feet.
And what's the depth, what's the distance from the glass wall to the street front? So where I'm asking is, if you're driving down the street and you now have a glass floor, when you look up, will you ever be able to see the elements that you're saving?
Yeah, you'd have a hard time seeing the glass floor, I think, from the street.
I think it's going to be much more experienced as you walk by than as driving by, because it is at least 15 feet to the street. Looking for I don't think there's a dimension on the site plan for it.
No, but I would say that's 18. It's probably about 40 feet from the curb to the building, maybe 50 feet.
So where I'm going, I think, is staff's concern is that when you put those floors in, if you're on the sidewalk and you look up at the building, you will not be able to see these precast window panels that you're saving. And so have you looked at line of sight visibility from the sidewalk to see what you can actually see at that point?
Yeah, and this view does give a sense of that, because this view is what you'd see from the terrace or sidewalk zone. And so regardless of what we do, there is something that will preclude a completely open view, but very minor, if any, effect is from that floor. Once you see above that horizontal mullion that's at floor level, above that is where you will see the old fins of the old glass areas that were removed. And so we really don't think you'll see much of any difference at all.
You have proposed two alternatives. Is there one that your client prefers over the other, or is it?
The preference is for the one that, do you want to find that? For the one that has the more continuous fabric of the metal. It appears, that's this one. It appears a little bit, we think, constricted by the horizontals that would occur on the other scheme.
Yeah, so as I interpret the guidelines, and I'll read them, proposed additions should be interpretations of the existing buildings wherein the main characteristics of the existing structure are incorporated using modern construction methods. I think your two previous examples were much more successful, specifically as it relates to the metal panels. I would want to see a very strong band continue on those panels as opposed to the brickwork pattern that you have today.
I think this has taken a step backward, honestly. I think, I'm not sure we really have too much purview in terms of the extending the floors out, because you're doing an addition, it's not window treatment. So I agree with Ryan. I don't believe that it does obscure the plane of the existing wall more by putting in those floors, of course, it does. But I don't know that we have much purview over that. I think that I agree with Ryan that the previous metal skin was much quieter. I think to me, this is sort of a bit of incremental aggressiveness compared to what we've seen. But as you know, I personally, I think other commissioners had a lot of angst about putting something like this in the front of this building. This is a very significant building for Phelps Bultmann, the architect who did it, who was unique in Columbia in terms of his, ironically, his championship of preservation. And also, he studied under Vincent Scully, perhaps the most famous architectural educator in the history. Of course, Vincent Scully was Maya Lin's instructor when she won the Vietnam Veterans Memorial Competition. So Phelps' place in Columbia's history of architecture is unique, and this is one of his most significant buildings. So, that said, it's not protected, and we don't have, I don't believe it's in our purview it's not in our purview to say that you can't do something like this, but there was anxiety about this, as you know, and it's come back twice, and now a third time. To me, this is more aggressive than the other proposals were. I agree with, but I'll leave aside the issue of the floors. The more it comes away from the building, I think the more it begins to obscure the view of the building. That's just true, whether it's, catastrophically more or not. I think it's for other commissioners to think about, but it does incrementally obscure that facade, the main facade of the building. But I think for me, the main thing, and again, this is where I get back to, I agree with Ryan, I think that the simpler panels, the quieter panels, were much, much better. I don't think that it has any effect on the function of the building, whether you have this vertical running bond or not, and I think that the way that the panels were configured before was, simpler is better in this regard. I don't see a relationship, for instance, between the masonry, running bond masonry infill, and this vertical bond, because it's vertical and it's in metal panels and it's of a completely different scale. So I don't see a relationship there. And then my vote would be to go back to the previous metal panel configuration. And then the only other thing, and it hasn't been brought up at all, but I'm pretty sure I noticed that you have awning rods now at the other entrances, which were not in the approved scheme. And you haven't addressed those. Yeah, I see them on here, but on the approved schemes, I'm pretty sure that those weren't there. It was much more of a just abstract L shape. So that concerns me as well. If driving by, I wouldn't expect to see them based on what's been previously approved. And it doesn't seem like you need them there.
Yeah, that's something that came up through structural analysis on that in order to keep it.
But it's not cantilevering very far, and you could easily post up and cantilever over and triangulate back to the building.
We can explore that further. We felt the same response and explored that, but we can explore it further. The one thing I do want to mention about the metal panels, and maybe we can get one of those side views again. But
speak into the mic a little more, sir.
Thank you. Regarding the metal panels, we explored a number of options, as you can imagine, for how that would be panelized. And part of the issue became, as we were refining this, of course, we're working with a general contractor to make sure of constructability and cost issues, which are always a part of any significant project. And this became not only constructible but affordable with a minimum of oil canning, which is one of the concerns that you have with a metal wall. So that's sort of what ended up leading in this direction, but we also felt like, compared to the earlier schemes, this was actually more of a balance between the vertical and the horizontal, which in the previous schemes, they were much more vertical. The panels became 8 foot tall by, what were they, 2 feet?
2 feet.
2 foot wide. These are actually in more of a proportion of most elements in the building, which are not as vertical as the previous metal panels. And that also has something to do with the idea of expanding the metal wall out a bit toward the street. it became a little bit too vertical in its emphasis when it was set back further, but it also had a sense that it was a very out of proportion attachment to the building, whereas this has felt more settled after we explored it further. It feels more in keeping with the proportions. And one thing that we did as a measuring line to help see that is that right now the most vertical piece on the existing building, other than the columns, would be the window frame themselves, the precast window frames. If you apply the exact proportion of those window frames to this wall that we're looking at, the metal wall, it's the exact same proportion. It's just a measuring line approach.
Yeah, I saw that. I'm not, I guess I have a different opinion about that. I'm looking at the old scheme now and looking at where the joints are in the precast, or maybe they're cast, I guess precast or cast in place panels, whatever they are on the exterior. Looking where the joints are in general, looking at the proportions of the precast trim around the windows, and to my mind, the previous jointing of the metal panels was much more compatible with the existing building. If oil canning is an issue, obviously there are composite panels like Alucobond panels. It's just a matter of which metal panels you use. I've done a few metal panel buildings in the past, so I know that that's true. To my mind, that's probably a significant departure from the previously approved scheme, and it brings in a texture and I think scale that's foreign to the building. It's in my judgment. I agree with staff's recommendation.
I understand what you're saying. We actually felt like the more we studied a number of options, and I don't know how many it might have been, 20, a dozen, I don't know. But as we looked at all the options, this is one that we felt emerged as being the strongest, partly because it is recognizing the movement that we see at various scales in the existing building. There's a lot more movement than we first think about, but as we study it, and you're saying, well, the brick is oriented the other direction, but basically if you take this as an entire ensemble, even including the roof fencing around the mechanical, there is a lot of movement vertically and horizontally that's always going on. And we felt like using a new material, modern material, which it would be called out in the guidelines, we are incorporating modern construction methods and materials and interpreting something that's been here for a number of years. That interpretation is not to mimic the movement of the brick or the precast or the windows, but is meant to pick up the spirit of what's there in a new way.
What's the most important part of this? Because it's been approved twice, and it's coming back again. It seems like you've done a lot of schematic design study in the interim, which normally we would expect to see that when we approve. So I guess my question is, what would you consider to be the most important of this? I would think it would be the addition of the floors from a functional standpoint, because certainly the owners know it doesn't make that much difference.
Added a lot of value to this being a community open face.
Okay.
Yes, I agree.
Maybe I can rephrase that a different way. You're basically picking up, I think, 16 inches on the front, give or take.
We've got about 9 inches of extension on the glass so we can get a door out to the terrace, and we've got about 14 inches of added extension to the metal beyond the glass.
So what are we really accomplishing? I mean, we're making a little bit bigger space.
Well, they didn't have floors before.
Yeah. Didn't have the floors before. Right. Okay, it was a straight atrium before.
Right, and we didn't have a door going outside at some earlier stages.
It looks like you did. I'm looking at the final approved one. There wasn't a door there on the east side?
The second submittal did have a door in there, but it wasn't detailed out yet. And the detailing of the structure, we would have been walking into a column which was getting in the way. But the 9 inches extension allowed clearance.
It looks like you also eliminated the knee wall in front of the addition in this last submission, whereas it wrapped in the previous two. which I think actually helps with the continuation of the banding and the previous two.
Yeah, this sketch is not completely up to date because the concrete seat wall does extend basically halfway across the base of that glass area. So if you took, say, where that woman is standing or walking in the middle of the glass or big glass area, the seat wall extends about to where she is.
Okay, so it's similar to what it was in the past in that case.
It is.
All right, well, we thank you, sir. Is there anyone here in the audience who would like to speak in favor of or in opposition to the changes that we're seeing here and that have been presented?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have been sworn in Ken Wingate. I'm the chair of the committee at First Presbyterian Church, and obviously we speak in favor. Would like to thank you. You do a lot of tedious work. A lot of what has been said has gone over my head from a construction and design point, but to the very good question of what's our most important request, it's two things. One is openness of view, and so we certainly have no problem with that knee wall or seawall being added there if that's within your recommendation. But honestly, our other most important ask is approval to move forward. We're now one further year down the road. I would ask just by a show of hands, the members of First Presbyterian Church, if you would raise your hands, who are here in support. And when we got into the work with Hood Construction Company, our general contractor, it was the structural integrity and the strength of that structure as approved at the design phase that caused us to go, no, we must make it 9 inches longer coming toward that 50-foot distance to the street and 14 inches wider in terms of coverage toward the eastern side of the building, attached at the top of the parapet so that the concrete border, which you see and have very well pointed out, several of you, remains completely visible at the top. We agree with you that knee wall or seawall at the bottom adds a harmony of that same horizontal band. And we would, of the two options, prefer option A. We're willing to go with A or B as this committee deems most appropriate and in keeping. And Mr. Chairman, that's what we would request, and we're open to those little modifications. And thank you.
Thank you, sir. Yes, please come forward. Have you been sworn in? And
thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm signed up, but I did not stand to be sworn in earlier.
would you raise your right hand? Do you swear to tell the truth in these proceedings?
I do.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. My name is Jay Thompson. I am a member of First Presbyterian Church, and my law firm's office is a block and a half away. It helps to understand this if you frequent the area. I think that's probably true of all of the proposals that come before you. And as a person who drives by, walks in and out on a regular basis, the aesthetics and the subjective nature that is a great deal of what you are considering is something that I want to tell you there is a lot of energy and excitement of a lot of different people, because what this brings is a new design that preserves the nature of what is already there in a way that is completely consistent with our design guidelines that we have. Our city center design development guidelines that you're familiar with, right there in section 1.6, it's got 8 bullet points as to what the objectives of the guidelines are. And the energy and the excitement that I'm talking about comes in large part because this is bringing in a spectrum of individuals, a lot of individuals, and the exciting part about it is they're from a lot of different perspectives and age groups who see this promoting all of those guidelines. The portion of these guidelines that is quoted in the staff report that we're looking at from section 5.9.10. It quotes one of the bullet points, but what I would call your attention to is right above that. What it says is that it should be harmonious and not in stark contrast. The changes that we're looking at compared to what's been previously already approved don't make it any less harmonious or in stark contrast, and we would encourage you to approve it. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Is there anyone else that would like to speak? Please come forward, state your name. Have you been sworn in?
My name is Elliot Powell. I have not been sworn in, and I have not signed in. So.
Okay, would you do both, please? Or sign in and then raise your right hand. Do you affirm to tell the truth in these proceedings?
I do.
Thank you.
The one thing that I have not heard, and I was not at the other reviews, is the perspective from inside the building. We're talking about what you're seeing from the street looking in at the building, and I think that's very important. What this does for us as members of our church is it opens up the grandeur of our beautiful church, which when you're standing on the inside of that building looking out, you're looking directly at the steeple in the front of the church. I just wanted to make that point. Thank you.
Thank you,
I
sir.
would like to approve.
Thank you. Is there anyone else? Any rebuttal? None? One quick.
Can I offer one more statement?
Yes, sir. Just a 2-minute.
Okay. This is something I'm not sure was really clarified in any of the discussion, but there had been some concern in this latest rendition of the schematic design that we had reduced the thickness of the metal wall. And if you look at the original concept that was first approved, this is much more in keeping with that than with the one in between that was approved. And we felt the one in between, which was sort of in the process of design, was too thick and blocky. It actually competed with the heavier concrete columns of the building, whereas this lighter metal wall thickness allows really allows the concrete to express itself as the strong suit. The wall express itself as a much lighter element floating in front of that. So we think there's a really good reason to go back closer to what was originally submitted on the thickness of that wall.
Can I ask, what was the original thickness? What is it today? And I know that we've increased the depth of about 16 inches, but what is the actual depth of that wall from end of the wall to the window?
She's the dimension person.
The thickness of the wall was originally 18 when it was approved, and then it moved to the 24 in that September submission, which is actually thicker than the 20-inch concrete columns, and we've gone back down to a 16-inch width on that wall.
And what's the depth of the wall from the face to the glass?
It is 50 inches from the glass face to the edge of the can.
Thank you, folks. Okay. We've had a good, healthy discussion here, and questions and answers and presentation. I think for clarity as we move forward, I think all of us here as commissioners have to consider that we have a choice of approval or denial of the application as such. We have seen this now for the third time, and we have approved a prior application and design. There are two, both Plan B and Plan A, and certainly any motion and vote for approval should take or should include recommendations of moving toward either A or B or prior design. So I'll ask for a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion. I'll make a motion for the approval of design certificate for the addition of the floor and increasing the depth of the wall and the glass but would defer away from option A or B on the panels and would request that they redesign the pattern to more similarly mirror the July 16 pattern in the panels, with that detail deferred to staff.
What about the awning rods?
Yeah, and removal of the awning rods as they were in the original submission.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Heiler, any second?
I'll second.
We have a second. Motion for approval with conditions as stated, and a second. Any further discussion? There being none, will you call the roll for a vote, please?
Certainly. Mr. Bachnight? Yes. Mr. Brim?
Yes.
Mr. Daniel?
Yes.
Ms. Fuller-Wilt?
No.
Ms. Great?
Yes.
Mr. Heiler?
Yes.
Mr. Savory?
Yes.
Mr. Nguyen?
Yes.
The motion passes.
Thank you very much. Thank you, folks. That'll take us now to the next case, which is 805 Florence Street.
Yeah. No, I think they'll pull it off. Yeah, it's not that hard. It really isn't.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, everyone.
Yes.
805 Florence. This is a request for a certificate of design approval for new construction. The applicant is proposing a new single-family residence of approximately 1,743 heated square feet, 2,068 covered, to be constructed on the vacant parcel located at 805 Florence Street. Excuse me. The house will be a 1.5 story with 3 bedrooms and 2 baths on the main floor. The site plan indicates a large size lot of 80.08 feet wide by 151.14 feet deep. The predominant house types in the district for Earlwood Area A are bungalow, transitional cottage, and minimal traditional, with some being 2-story. This design is an extended minimal traditional with a large chimney on the interior, a front-facing gable with a cross-gabled roof form. These basic forms of the minimal traditional style are found along the street and throughout the district. Distribution of solid components to open spaces is for the most part compatible with houses on the block or street. However, the left elevation is a 24-foot long solid mass with no windows and a chimney centered on the inside wall. This massing is not compatible with the existing historic buildings on the street because there are no open spaces. The left elevation should have a full-size window placed on either side of the centered chimney to be compatible with surrounding historic buildings. The proposed front door is out of scale with minimal traditional buildings in the area. This door is 8 feet high with double doors compared to surrounding historic buildings with an average 6-foot, 8-inch tall single door. The double doors are not found on minimal traditional buildings in the Earlwood neighborhood. The current plans submitted are unclear as to the details of a patio, porch, steps, or stoop which are found on historic structures in the area. These drawings only show a concrete slab rather than a detailed foundation and a ground-level patio in front of the structure. The house will have a cross-gabled roof form with a 10-12 roof pitch. However, the submitted drawings show the ridge line of main roof not meeting the gable roof form of the projecting bay on the facade. The applicant has notified our office that the dormer on the right elevation will be removed from construction. The exterior walls on the submitted plan show siding, but may be clad with brick and painted white as indicated on the exterior specification sheet submitted. The applicant has not made a final determination. Staff finds that the proposal is mostly consistent with the established design guidelines for the district and recommends for a certificate of design approval for the new construction of the single-family residential house with the following conditions to be compliance. A single front door of appropriate height with surrounding historic buildings. The left elevation with chimney to have a full-size window placed on either side of the chimney. Windows to follow placement and actual dimensions listed on submitted plans. All facade windows to be same size with no awnings. The foundation drawings do not represent the foundation details accurately. The foundation will be a 16-inch block curtain wall on concrete slab. Foundation drawings with front step details will be required prior to construction. No concrete patio extending length of facade at ground level, but a porch or stoop is appropriate for the district. Correct roof ridgeline drawings will be required prior to construction. Dormers to be same pitch, 312. Steps to front door to be of concrete or brick. All details and any changes to be deferred to staff.
Thank you very much. And it's the applicant here. I saw you stood up earlier. Have you been sworn in and signed in?
My name's Jordan Thompson, and I'm nervous. I guess I really wanted the double doors. They were passed down to us by family. There's one set of double doors in Earlwood on River Drive. It's included in the picture. It's the second picture down on the left. And then I just felt like they were consistent with the door openings that you see in Earlwood a lot with the two side lights. And actually, our doors are much slimmer than that door opening. Am I actually too close to it? No? Okay. So our double doors, I brought a picture to show you. I'm standing next to them to show you that they're actually very slimline double doors. I also brought a picture to show you that there's a set of double doors about 2 blocks away from us. It's technically in the Elmwood, over the Elmwood line, and then there are a set of double doors on a home just like ours being built. It's an old home, but it's in Cottontown. I don't know that that would be applicable at all. And I also just felt like they were consistent with what you see in Earlwood, that they have a rounded top to them. So that's one of my requests. Do I need to pause?
No.
Sorry.
Continue. Just speak into the mic or speak up a little bit more.
Okay. I guess my only other concern that it didn't come up at all until I got the final papers this week for this was the awnings. I think it suggested that there be no awnings. I don't know. Is that because I don't know what I'm doing?
Don't be nervous.
Okay.
You're fine.
There's actually about, is that better? Okay. There's actually about 8 houses with awnings on our block. So I was really confused with why we wouldn't be allowed metal awnings. And I'm totally willing for us to change them a little bit to look more consistent with awnings. But that was actually me attempting to fit the house in to the surrounding area. I think those are my 2 main concerns.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am. Are there any questions from the commission?
There were a number of conditions that you didn't talk about. I assume that you're okay with the conditions that you didn't talk about?
Well, we can talk about the two windows on the either side of the fireplace. The reason I did that is just because interior-wise, I have 3 windows on the front. That's going to be our whole living room. There's 3 windows there, and then the back, there's 3 sets of double doors. So I just was trying to give myself some wall space inside. If it's an absolute must to put windows there, then I understand that we need to. I just was also thinking it was kind of a smaller wall. It's only 24 foot. So if I can get by without them, I would love to, but I understand if I have to have them there. And then as far as foundation goes, I guess we just maybe didn't discuss that detail with the architect or the lady that was drawing the house for us. I think we were going to get those details a little bit later, so I'm down with whatever. That's not, I shouldn't say that. I'm okay with, I'm sorry.
Okay.
That's fine. I know
Very
what you mean.
good. Anyone else?
Said that the double doors were passed down. Do you know the approximate age of those doors?
I do not, I just know they're older.
Do you have a picture of them?
Yeah, there's a picture in there, but I also brought.
It's in the
Miss,
it's in the
Moore
packet.
will take it.
Yeah. It was one thing I didn't, I looked over this several times and just never really understood. But the one comment that says, staff comment, hang on a second. Stapled pages, front and back, get me confused. Yes, I'm completely confused.
What was it about?
Okay. Yeah, about the corrected roof ridge line, because looking at it, it's, when you say corrected, do you mean reconfigured? Because looking at the roof plan and looking at all of the elevations, the primary ridge is actually higher and would have to come to a gable in order to meet the crossing ridge. It didn't look like it was incorrectly drawn. It may not be something that is ideal, but it looked like it was correctly drawn. But
It looked a little bit off to me. It did look off to me.
often I mean, that it didn't look like it should be designed that way, or that it looked like something was drawn wrong?
It looked like something was wrong, was off.
Well, the one ridge is higher than the crossing ridge, so you're going to end up having to resolve that, and so they did it with a gable.
Right, and especially now, the large dormer on the right elevation is going to be removed completely from construction.
Yeah, right. Well, I mean, from a flashing standpoint, that's probably, the builder will like that. That's a lot of stuff coming together at one place. I mean, the only way that you could, well, there's three ways to solve that so that those ridges come in at the same height. One is to lower one of the ridge, lower the higher ridge. Lower the pitch of the one with the higher ridge, increase the pitch of the one with the lower ridge, or raise the lower gable up. I mean, those are the only three ways to do it.
Changing the slope.
Changing the slope might not. Making it more vertical on the secondary one is okay. And you think a more vertical slope would be in keeping with the architecture of the neighborhood? I mean, I didn't draw it, so I'd have to draw it to be sure what it looks like to me.
The ridge line could come down a bit, and it could be...
On the primary
Right.
gable? Okay, I see. Would that matter to you? Do you understand what we're talking about?
So you're saying the main one to bring it down a little bit to where the pitch isn't so steep, I guess?
That's what's being suggested, so that the two gables come together like that, so one's not higher than the other one?
Yeah, I actually spoke with the drafts lady that put this together and sort of was concerned about it at first as well, because from an elevation standpoint, I think it looks funny when it's drawn on paper. But actually, in a lot of the photos that were, I don't know if you'll have the photos, but were taken, a lot of the ridgelines actually look like that throughout our neighborhood, where one ridgeline is a little bit lower. So I was actually a little confused on this area and wanted clarification on it. The living room is a vaulted ceiling, so I guess I would have to go over and see.
Well, one way to solve that would be to extend the higher ridge over and create a dormer at on the other side, a small dormer.
Okay.
Yep. Roof lines get confusing if you don't do them a lot. So, do you understand what I mean?
Yeah.
Do you understand what I'm getting at? I think what's a little strange is that little bit of a hip right there in order to get the two joined up together. But that's something you could work out.
Speak into your mic, please.
All the way over to the far side of the house, basically.
Or at least most of the way, or halfway, or something significant.
See, it is. That's where I think the elevation is tricky, because that's where I was confused too, because it looks funny, but
well, it matches the roof plan.
Huh?
The elevation matches the roof plan. So, I mean, the drafter was consistent.
Okay. Oh, wait, so maybe I'm misunderstanding. I thought the top ridgeline does go the whole extension of the house.
No, it doesn't.
It doesn't.
Not according to the roof plan.
Huh, okay.
But you guys could work this out.
Okay.
Okay. Any further questions?
I'll address a few of the things. So the windows do need to be on that stretch there on the elevation to break up that massing because it's too wide.
Okay.
To have no openings there.
Sure.
The awnings that you talked about, these awnings that even though the material of standing seam is an acceptable material, it's more acceptable on a different type of house. So this minimal traditional should not have like I can't think of any examples, and I live in Earlwood as well, of an awning or a shed roof awning. So you had mentioned that you'd be willing to change the awnings. I also have seen lots of awnings, but they're 1950s kind of looking.
Sure.
Less attractive to our eyes maybe these days with the design aesthetic of this, but these don't read it with the way they are on the drawing in the shed style as consistent with minimal traditional residence.
Okay. Well, I brought photos of all the houses with awnings around the block that I took, and then I also brought.
I'd be happy to look at those because I don't remember any that look like this, so I was curious.
Well, then can you guys help me? So can we get to a place where we come to an agreement on an awning? Because I feel like
I believe so.
Okay, that's all I was wondering. Okay.
And the doors, the house on River Drive that you're referring to, I don't believe that it's a minimal traditional. I think it's more of a Victorian. So that's why that style fits that style of house. It doesn't fit with this style of house.
Okay. What about just the comparison of the doors with the big side lights and how that's a big opening and it's actually much bigger than
kind of a different beast. That's again, those are from the era that fits that genre, that style.
The page with 4 that's me bringing you other options. Do any of those fit? And then the one with the multiple or more than 4 is all of the ones from the neighborhood. See, I was thinking that they were kind of in line with it because they have the lines that match. And I didn't know if it meant, do you just want me to wrap them around? Or
I actually don't find these awnings that you that are in the neighborhood attractive myself, but they do
Sure.
fit the style. They're from that era.
Sure.
And even though this is the shed, it just doesn't, it's not the same. To me, I don't know if anybody else, do you want to see?
I guess I'm finding it, I don't understand though why that wouldn't be passed if they're right there all around the area. I'm trying to blend it with those houses.
If you're trying to blend them, then they would look exactly the same as those with material along the side and not just flat front, which is very modern looking.
But that's where there's some lines throughout the guidelines that say they may reflect the era of their own construction to carry on the tradition of diversity. So I think there can be slight changes, and we can go with that, or that was my thought on it, is to incorporate something that you see all around our block. But of course, it's not going to look exactly like the 1950s. That may be a little more to our era.
Can you read that line to me again?
Listen. New construction should be consistent with existing buildings along a street in terms of height, scale, proportion, and rhythm of opening, setbacks, orientation, and spacing. However, new buildings need not imitate past architectural styles. They may reflect the era of their own construction to carry on tradition of diversity and building styles present.
Thank you, that's helpful.
So to be clear, this is what you're proposing in terms of your awnings?
Yeah, and actually I would love for y'all to work with me to help me come. I just feel like because she mentioned it is a wider set house, I want to have some pretty sights on the front of the house because it is a little bit wider. And so I thought it needed something on that side, that part of the elevation, because, you know, we'll have the dormer up on the roof that kind of breaks up the roof on the left side, and then maybe to match the metal roofing that goes over the door to put, to have two metal awnings over the windows. To me, that just gave everything a nice, even, I don't know, draw your eye to some aesthetic details on that side.
You know, I don't know which way this commission is going to go on the awnings, but honestly, I think looking at it, if I imagine it without the awnings, I think it's quite, you're going to have a nice house. Even without the awnings, I think it's a nice composition.
Yeah, I agree with you, Tom. I don't know that, I think that I'm a little bit torn on my interpretation of the awnings, because I think that there are some good historic examples of metal awnings, and this is a new modern interpretation of it. I think that I do have a problem if the commission decided to approve the use of the double arched doors having an awning above those doors, because I don't think, even in some more minimalist, I mean, I can think of some houses in Shandon that my friends live in that have arched doors, and they're not double, but they are arched, but in no case do you ever see an awning above those doors.
Okay. So
Exactly, yeah.
And I kind of, well, I would be fine with doing a single door with the metal awning.
Okay.
Another option, of course, with a single door is to actually do a gable, some sort of over the entry, right? Similar to.
That's actually my house on the top right.
That's the house you're in now?
Yeah, I actually brought a picture to show you my two houses that I've owned in Earlwood, to show you that we only make them really pretty. And our neighbors love us for doing that. I don't know that you want it.
Well, very good. Is there anyone here who would like to speak for or against this application? Okay.
Can I ask a question of the applicant? So when I look at the stylization of the house, I do think that where I get conflicted the most on the front facade is the combination of the awnings and the arched door. If you had to choose one or the other, which would you prefer?
I think I could do either or. I feel like it needs either or. Like it either needs the awnings or it needs, like, so if the awnings were gone, to me, having that double door would really, and like I said, they're very slimline. They're not two big double doors, but it would just give it an extra, and with the rounded top, it would just give it an extra feature. I think it's either or I would be very happy with. Did I answer that right?
Let me ask one short question. Yeah. What is the purpose of the awnings? Are they there for aesthetics? Are they there to cut the sun? Are they there to protect the windows? What is the reason you put them there?
Strictly aesthetics. I just thought that it needed something, kind of the same as shutters, but I didn't want to do shutters on this house.
How many inches taller are the doors that she wants to use than, approximately, than the ones that we see in the neighborhood on the older homes?
The doors that she wants to use are 8 feet high.
And they're also double. Okay. Yeah.
Foot higher, at least.
Yeah.
A foot, you say?
A foot, but I will say that's in the curve. So where the curve, so not all the way, just at the middle, are they a foot taller?
Okay. Any further questions? Yes, I do. Mr. Broom, go ahead.
How about now? Oh, there you go. I'm reading from what you read out. The dormers are still in, correct? The dormers?
The front dormer, we will have. The dormer on the right elevation, we will not have.
Okay. The dormers to be same pitch, 3 and 12. This is a shingle roof, correct?
Mm-hmm.
I think you better look at that again. It need to be more than 3 and 12 to get proper drainage. It need to be at least 3 and a half, maybe perhaps 4. If you're going to have shingles over 3 and 12, it could leak.
Okay.
So you need to look at the recommendations by the shingle manufacturer whether 3 is acceptable or not.
Okay. I will definitely look into that. And we actually, that dormer's getting resized a little bit. It's hard, like again, with elevations, it's hard for me to be able to tell. But the builders recommended that it was a little out of scale and that it might be a little too large. So I think we might be slimming it down a little bit. So I'll mention that. Thank you.
That's true. That'll be better.
Yeah, it's hard for me to tell from like a drawing like that, but they recommend it.
Okay, Mr.
Could I ask, would staff flip back to the pictures that showed the other examples of the houses with the arched doorways?
Now, I didn't pull arched doorways.
They weren't double, but they were arched.
Oh, there they are.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I would suggest the allowance of the double arched doorways if a gable similar to this were built, and then eliminate the canopies.
Okay, so we have no one in the audience to speak against or for. We've had significant discussion. Thank you for your presentation, ma'am. And you did well. You're not nervous now, I can tell. So let's go for a motion. Is there anyone who would like to offer one?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I will make a motion for the approval of design certificate approval. Which address am I on here? For 805 Florence Street. Let's see. To allow for the double arched doors, provided that a gable similar to shown in the pictures here is added to the front of the building. The left elevation with chimney to have full-size windows placed on either side, both sides of the chimney. Windows to follow placement and actual dimensions listed on submitted plans. All facade windows to be the same size with no awnings. Let's see. Foundation drawings with front step details provided to staff and approved by staff prior to construction. No concrete patio extending length of facade, but a porch or stoop would be appropriate and approved by staff. and that staff study and approve the roof ridge line and pitch of the dormers. That steps to the front door be of concrete or brick, and any other details or changes deferred to staff.
Thank you, sir. Very well spoken. Is there a second?
I'll second.
We've got 2 seconds. Any further discussion? There being none, call the roll, please.
Mr. Bachnight.
Yes.
Mr. Broom.
Yes.
Mr. Daniel.
Yes.
Ms. Fuller-Wilt.
Yes.
Ms. Great. Yes. Mr. Heiler.
Yes.
Mr. Savory.
Yes.
Mr. Nguyen.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you very much. We have approved the design with conditions. That takes us now to 1107 Woodrow Street.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Ms. Ritchie.
Good evening, I'm sorry, not afternoon anymore. This is a contributing building in 1107 Woodrow Street to the Melrose Heights Oaklawn Architectural Conservation District. This is a circa 1930 brick veneer single-family residence that will not be the applicant's primary home. They're looking to maximize floor space on the interior, which includes a request to remove the chimney that you see here, also to replace the historic wood windows and the beadboard porch ceiling, which are all visible to the public right-of-way. Other repairs to the building will include plumbing, HVAC, and electricity upgrades. The applicant is also requesting the Bailey bill, and they understand that their requests do not comply with that, but if the Bailey bill could be approved with those items denied, that would be acceptable. The windows appear to be repairable, and the guidelines say if it's technically and economically feasible, they should be repaired rather than replaced. So the request to replace these does not meet the guideline. For roof materials, it also states that you should retain or replace where necessary dormer windows, cupolas, cornices, brackets, chimneys, etc. So the removal of the chimney would also not meet the guideline. The exterior siding also includes items such as the cornices, brackets, soffits, fascia, etc., and states that those items should be retained and repaired where necessary. The porch ceiling is in good repair. There's just a few boards that probably need to be nailed back up. For the Bailey bill, the first item under the city ordinance for that says that historic character of the property shall be retained and preserved. The removal of historic materials or alterations of features and spaces that characterize each property shall be avoided. So the request to remove these items would not meet that section of the Bailey bill. Also, number 4, distinctive features, finishes, and construction techniques or examples of craftsmanship that characterize a property should be preserved. So again, removal of those items would not meet the Bailey bill or the guidelines for Melrose Heights. To that end, staff finds the proposal does not meet Section 7 of the guidelines and recommends that the request for a certificate of design approval be denied. Staff finds the proposal has qualifying expenses that would meet the Bailey bill, except that the exterior changes requested do not meet Ordinance Section 17698. Staff recommends preliminary certification for the Bailey bill only upon the condition that the chimney, beadboard, porch, ceiling, and wood windows be retained. Project meets or exceeds the 20% investment threshold, the work meets the ordinance, and then all details could be deferred to staff. Do you have any questions for me?
Any questions of staff?
Does this end up with 2 separate motions?
Yes.
Okay.
Preferably, I think, yeah.
Any other questions for staff? No? Is the owner or the applicant here? No? Okay. Any discussion? Is there anyone here in the audience who is here to speak for or against this application? No discussion? No audience participation? No applicant? So I guess we'll go ahead and ask for a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to deny the certificate of design approval for 1107 Woodrow Street.
Okay. We have a motion to deny the design approval or design application, and we have a second. Any further discussion on that matter? There being none, roll call, please.
Mr. Bachnight?
Yes.
Mr. Broom?
Yes.
Mr. Daniel?
Yes.
Ms. Fuller-Wilt?
Yes.
Ms. Great?
Yes.
Mr. Heiler?
Yes.
Mr. Savory?
Yes.
Mr. Nguyen?
Yes.
The motion passes.
Okay, so the motion passes, therefore the design approval is denied.
That's correct.
Right. Now we'll have a motion, please, for the Bailey Bill application for this same property.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion for the preliminary certification of the Bailey Bill, conditional upon the following: that the chimney, beadboard, porch ceiling, and wood windows be retained, the project meet or exceed the 20% investment threshold requirements, that all work meet the standards for work as outlined in section 17-698, and that all other details be deferred to staff.
Thank you very much, Mr. Heiler. We have a second. Very good. Any further discussion? There being none, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Bachnight?
Yes.
Mr. Broom?
Yes.
Mr. Daniel?
Yes.
Ms. Fuller-Wilt?
Yes.
Ms. Great?
Yes.
Mr. Heiler?
Yes.
Mr. Savory?
Yes.
Mr. Nguyen?
Yes.
The motion passes for approval.
Thank you. So we have a Bailey Bill approval with conditions as stated and as read. Thank you. Our next case is 140 South Walker Street.
This is a contributing building located in the Shandon Community Character Area. For our newer commissioners, community character areas are not historic districts. They are only locations where the DDRC has purview over demolition. So that is all you would be able to review. Any new construction would not be reviewed by the commission. This building was purchased within the last 3 months by the the client of the agent. The agent represents a person who is interested in demolishing the building so that they can increase the size of the lot to the south. On the photo you see here, it would be the lot to the right. And that way they could have a larger south lot and potentially build 2 single-family houses. Staff was able to walk through the house on June 19th with the applicant. No written information has been provided to staff regarding any of the ordinance language. This is the building. It looks fairly well maintained from the exterior. It was a duplex probably since construction. This is the south side duplex, which has more wear and tear, some cracks in the ceiling, some dirt, some areas of water damage, potentially in the restroom area and kitchen. The north side of the duplex seen here is in somewhat better condition with very minimal condition issues. This is some of the basement access. You can see some of the framing underneath the floor system. The building shown up in the upper left corner was constructed by the agent's client, the owner, and that is immediately adjacent to the north of this property. And the right-hand side picture, though it's dark, is this house plus the lot to the right. And then the brick house is just the property across the street. From the city ordinance, there are 8 items to review when considering a demolition for the Shandon area. The first is whether or not the building has historic or architectural significance. This building does have that since it is contributing. It was built during the era of major development for Shandon and is a good example of a minimal traditional style in a cladding rather than brick. This style is common to Shandon. It maintains similar forms, materials, height, setback, and style that fits in well with the era and architecture that makes Shandon a fairly intact historic neighborhood. Number two, a determination of whether the subject property is capable of earning a reasonable economic return on its value without the demolition, with consideration being given to the economic impact to the property owner of the subject property. This ordinance language does not suggest that any property owner is due an economic return. Real estate is an investment that has a lot of complexities to it. The property appears to be capable of earning an economic return due to its fair condition, its recent use as a duplex rental, and the statement by the applicant to city staff that if the building were not able to be torn down, he would keep it as a rental. Shandon is also a very desirable real estate market. Number three, the importance of the building structure to the ambiance of the district. This is important because, again, it is contributing. This is also on the very southern border of Shandon, so it helps hold the line of this district against a fairly busy corridor along Rosewood. Number four, whether the building is one of the last remaining examples of its kind. It is not. There are a number of these types in the area. Number five, whether there are definite plans for reuse of the property if the proposed demolition is carried out, and what the effect of those plans on the character of the surrounding area would be. No definite plans have been provided. In conversation with the agent, he has stated that the preferred plan would be to use part of this parcel to add to the adjacent parcel to the south, and then build single-family homes on each lot, pointing to the adjacent house to the north as an example of what could be built. That particular house is somewhat larger than the homes on South Walker Street, so the presumption is that the new houses may be slightly larger. Since there's no definite plans provided, it would be difficult to make a determination on this particular part of the ordinance. Number six, the existing structural condition, whether it endangers public safety. The applicant has stated to staff that the building could be repaired and it may have some structural repair issues in the foundation due to some visible cracks in the plaster walls and ceilings. No history of maintenance and use has been provided. It appears to have been a duplex since it was constructed. You've seen the photographs about some of the condition. I will note that this was purchased less than 3 months ago, so whatever condition this building is in was purchased in this condition by the applicant. In walking through both units, staff did observe some slight issues with the floor system, but no information has been provided to us regarding that condition by any professionals. The house was being lived in until a few months ago and appears to be in repairable condition. It has typical deferred maintenance items and a few areas of water damage, with some potential for foundation repairs. It does not appear to endanger public safety. The city is not requiring its demolition. Number seven, whether it could be relocated. No information has been provided about that. And finally, number eight, again, whether or not the city is requiring its demolition, and the city is not. In fact, I did not find any current code cases against this property. Staff finds that the property has historic and architectural significance because it contributes to the ambiance of the Shandon neighborhood. It appears to be capable of earning a reasonable economic return. It is important to the ambiance of the district. It appears to be in fair condition, and it is not under orders from the city to be demolished as per section 17674 of the city ordinance. Therefore, staff recommends denial of the request for demolition.
Thank you very much, Ms. Ritchie. Is the applicant here, and would you like to come forward, sir? Have you been sworn in? And okay. You'll raise your right hand, please. And do you affirm to tell the truth in these proceedings?
I do.
Very good. Have you been signed in?
I have not.
Would you do that, please? And then you may proceed.
Is it possible for me to give you information that would help in my presentation?
Sure.
I would like to ask a question about that, though. There was an article in the Star today about this information being provided to the Shandon Neighborhood Council on Monday. Why was this not provided to staff before today?
Well, some of this information was not put together until very recently.
Well, I mean, you presented it to the, something to the Shannon Neighborhood Council on Monday that dealt with some issues with the structure.
Yeah.
Why are we just getting it today?
I did not know the process of submitting that. I was told I could submit it to
She's asked
city
you.
staff.
That's incorrect. That's incorrect. Staff requested this information multiple times from the applicant.
I did a walkthrough with the staff in order to obtain what their guidelines were, to understand what the process was. Once I did that, I put this information together, and that's how long it took me to put this information together. So I have information for you to consider. If you're telling me you're not going to consider it until I give it to staff for them to go through and pick apart, then...
I didn't say that. I just wonder why it's Thursday and you had this information that you presented to a meeting on Monday. You know, that's my only question.
Has staff seen it?
No, staff has not seen any information.
Okay, would you present it to them, please, and then they will pass it on to us?
You want a copy of it?
She'll pass that out.
Fantastic. All right, so my client, can I start now then?
I would make a motion before that we defer this for a month so we have a chance to get this information that's going to be provided to us at the last minute.
I would second that motion.
Point of order. Is that something that
That will be next month's meeting.
I'm speaking with staff for the moment. We can do that. No guarantee that we can get it on the agenda is my question.
No, we have not advertised yet for next month.
Okay. All right, so we have a motion to defer, secondary to the need to review additional documents relating to this application. We have a second as well. Any further discussion? Okay, call the roll, please.
Mr. Bachnight?
Yes.
Mr. Broom?
Yes.
Mr. Daniel?
Yes.
Ms. Fuller-Wilt?
Yes.
Ms. Great?
No.
Mr. Heiler?
Yes.
Mr. Savory?
Yes.
Mr. Nguyen?
Yes.
The motion passes.
Sir?
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
Would those who have come to speak and signed up to speak on this case be allowed to present any sort of, be able to talk on this?
At the next presentation that you have the opportunity to do so, absolutely.
So they would not be allowed to speak today on it?
Well, it really would not contribute to any decision that would be made or discussion pending the fact that we have now deferred this. The need for us to review the depth of information that's relevant, especially considering that this is for a demolition, is quite important, and all the information and all the presentation by yourself and others will be important when we consider this in full.
Well, the only reason I would ask that is that if some people who were here this evening could not be present at the next meeting, that they could be able to speak and that be made part of a record, and then therefore be given consideration in the next meeting.
Well, again, I'm going to reflect back to what I just stated with the addition proviso that one can have written recommendation or you see what I'm saying? They can send through you to staff to be delivered to us any statements that they would like to make if they're not able to be here.
If I could add something, I think that if this information is compelling, it's far more in your interest to wait until we can review this and have digested it. It may be a non-issue, depending on what that information is, but if folks speak tonight, even if people here tonight aren't here next time, it'll be irrelevant that those people got that information because they won't be voting. It's probably in your interest to just go ahead and wait at this point anyway.
And I agree with that. I just didn't want anyone who had come and spent their time here waiting for a period of time to not be able to speak if they were not going to be able to be available for the next meeting. So that's all I was asking.
That's fine.
For their consideration, not for
Yeah.
mine. I'm glad to come back. Once they've reviewed this, I'm glad to
And
answer
we're
the questions.
always willing and accepting of any testimony that is in written form as well,
Okay.
as long as we are able to enter it into the record.
Fantastic.
Okay? We thank you, sir.
Anything else?
Our next case, I believe, and the last case for the night is 1211 Shirley Street.
This is a circa 1945 single-family brick veneer residence that contributes to the historic district. The applicant was a new owner who purchased the building about a year ago and later installed a concrete parking pad in the front yard. Staff knows the parking area contacted the owner, who is applying for approval to keep the paved area as it is. The owner indicated they were not aware of the parking restrictions at the time that they installed the pad. They wish to park side by side and avoid parking on the street, from their words, to remain safe while maintaining function and aesthetics to the area. Parking and driveways are regulated in the historic districts by city ordinance. Staff typically reviews parking areas and has consistently used this ordinance to retain the character of the existing districts and patterns by using the 12-foot maximum that's allowed and keeping driveways to the sides of houses. Staff cannot approve this parking request as they have not found it to be in keeping with the ordinance, so they are forwarding this request as an appeal to the commission. Ordinance 17674, just a second, for parking and driveways in historic districts states that unless a showing of extraordinary and exceptional conditions pertaining to the piece of property can be shown, the amount of allowable area paved for the use of a driveway or vehicular parking area shall be limited to a width of 12 feet, measured with a straight line that runs parallel to the front or secondary lot line. This is another view. I will suggest that there is no extraordinary and exceptional condition pertaining to this piece of property because this is a fairly typical lot located within the historic district. A majority of the streets have cars parked on them here. Like most houses in this district, this property has a narrow side yard that could likely accommodate a driveway, which can be placed directly on the property line. This is a house across the street with a side drive. The property to the north, again with side drive. Across the street with a drive that kind of wiggles to avoid staying in front of the house, and then the one next to that. The designated vehicular parking area, according to the ordinance, or driveway, shall be placed so as to minimize its visual impact on the primary structure. As you can see in the examples from the nearby homes, they tend to fade away because they're not placed directly in front of the building, unlike the one that is located here at 1211 Shirley Street. The designated vehicular parking area should be placed to minimize its visual impact. Reducing this back to 12 feet would help minimize its visual impact, and also, of course, historic patterns are that they fall to the side of the house. Finally, driveways and vehicular parking areas shall be compatible with the existing building and the site and setting of the historic district. The concrete material is acceptable, but again, the examples that are historically in the area are that they go to the side of the house, not in front of the house. Staff finds that the proposal does not meet section 17674 of the city ordinance and recommends that the request for a certificate of design approval be denied.
Thank you, ma'am. And I presume you're the applicant. Have you been sworn in?
My name is Carl Hiller. I am a representative, or an attorney and a friend for the applicant who's here today.
And you've been sworn in?
I've been sworn in. I've signed in and have been sworn in.
And do you plan on speaking as well?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so you will be sworn in, and then you can both proceed.
We have both signed.
Oh, okay.
I'm sorry, I didn't catch your name. I'm sorry, the attorney.
My name is Carl Hiller.
Thank you.
Thank you, commissioners.
Thank you.
Just a brief synopsis, as the staff has said. My client and his wife purchased the home about a year ago. At the time they purchased the home, there was a 12-foot wide gravel parking lot. The previous owners would park in the gravel driveway and would park to the side on the grass, which has been redone. My client and the owner of the home is a professional landscaper and hardscaper in Lexington County. The reason why, of course, he did not apply is he was not aware of the ordinance. Obviously, now after the fact, he has applied. That was an oversight on his part, and he apologizes, and he will apologize for that.
You can raise that mic up, sir.
Yeah, I'm
Thank
a
you.
little bit taller.
He actually did all of the hardscaping himself. The only thing he purchased was the concrete. He bordered it. He outlined everything. Everything was done to him. We strongly believe that this, the way the ordinance states that it shouldn't be set to the side, it actually sits on his property line and then moves forward. As staff said, he built a 19-foot wide parking pad because him and his wife would like to park off the street. The street, for those who are not familiar with it, connects Trenholm and Millwood, and it's a cut through from people who are cutting through from Trenholm to Millwood. And the adjacent street over is Butler Street. Butler Street is also a cut through. Butler has, I think there's plans, city plans to put speed bumps on Butler, so he fully expects the flow through traffic on Shirley to increase once those speed bumps go in on Butler. He has a 4-year-old son, and he's about to have a daughter in October. And really, it's a safety concern because the street is not wide enough for 2 cars to pass at the same time if you're opening your door and trying to get your child out of a car seat, let alone 1, not 2 children out of a car seat. We believe that it is in line with, it's very aesthetically pleasing. It was nice. It was well done. I know that I wasn't aware that there was rules as far as submitting additional photographs. I had my client, Mr. Galler, yesterday go around within a block and a half of his neighborhood, same neighborhood, a block and a half, to obtain additional photographs. And he knows what he's looking at. Again, he is a hardscaper by trade. Without going on people's property with a tape measure, because that would be trespassing, he took photos of, I think, 14 different properties within a block and a half that clearly have lots that are over 12 feet wide. And that is, first and foremost, what the restriction requires is that it be 12 feet wide. So I presume that each one of these has some sort of application either before or after the fact, and it's been approved by this committee. Yes, I would.
Those are most likely grandfathered in, just so you're aware.
Yeah.
Some of these are quite new. Some are not. Some are gravel lots. Some are hardscape, or some are concrete, just like my clients. Some are asphalt. I would, of course, ask you to look at those. Several of them look like they're only several years old, so I would imagine those are not grandfathered. But my client, of course, asked that this commission consider the need for his family, the need for the street, the fact that it's well done, aesthetically pleasing, and also the fact that the guidelines, the reasons for the ordinance is, of course, to keep the neighborhood harmonious, to keep it aesthetically pleasing, and we feel like this does not do anything to detract from the neighborhood. Of course, we didn't bring any neighbors here today. I'm glad to hear from any other neighbors who believe this somehow detracts from the neighborhood in any way. But I think getting more cars off the street is a good thing as far as safety concerns as far as safety is concerned. Excuse me. Ryan, do you have anything else you want to add?
My name is Ryan Galler. I'm the owner of 1211 Shirley Street. In regards to, I'll ask the staff, the grandfather aspect of it. What date was that since then?
The district was put in 2003.
2003. There's in those pictures, there's one off Butler Street. It's I don't know the address off the top of my head, but it's a house that my wife and I actually looked at prior to moving to a house that we bought on Trenholm Road. Since we looked at it, it has had a driveway installed very, very wide. Aesthetically, I think it's lacking. That's a personal preference. And then just in regards to safety, we have a 3-year-old, soon to be 4, who likes to ride a scooter up and down the sidewalk on the street. Just this past Saturday, sitting on the front porch, had a guy blow right through the stop sign, disregarded the thing altogether. So I would really strongly like your approval to keep the driveway as is.
Okay, thank you, sir. Just waiting for the opportunity to look at these, and then we can move forward.
I would just like to say that any driveways that are wider than 12 feet that you feel somehow appear more recent than 2003 would also be in violation of the ordinance. Secondly, I live in a historic neighborhood with children, and we park one right after the other in our driveways. That's just what you do. This, the width of this driveway in the front of the house is a clear violation of the ordinance. It's kind of cut and dry.
I don't think there's any dispute that it's over 12 feet. I mean, as far as that portion of the ordinance, I think we could have a great dispute. Some of the other photos that were shown what constitutes being on the side versus, I have to go back and look exactly what the ordinance says, but you know, the idea is not to cover up the front of the house with your parking pad, but I don't think there's any set dimensions as to what constitutes covering up the front of the house versus the side yard. This is up against the property line. And I know that obviously she's looking at some of those photos. We have photos that show parking pads that clearly
And again, those would also be in violation if they were not grandfathered in, so it's kind of a moot point to.
I understand. I mean, if we have to move forward, if some were granted exceptions, we'd have to move forward and find out if those were. But on the underlying fact, I think this was aesthetically pleasing. I don't think there's any real dispute as to that, and that he has an exceptional, I believe, extraordinary reason. And if that's the standard, I think that we've shown that. Thank you.
Any further comments or questions from the commission?
I have a question for staff. For this particular item, this isn't something that they would have been alerted to if a permit had been pulled, correct? You don't need a permit to do the driveway. It's just more knowledge-based, knowing the guidelines.
Sorry, the previous owner had come before the commission for an addition. So according to state law, actually the previous owner it's incumbent upon them to explain to their purchaser that they're within a historic district. And I had actually specifically spoken to that owner because they had mentioned possibly putting in a driveway about the fact that we review driveways. So there is some onus there and responsibility on previous owners according to state law. So, you know, that's something that obviously didn't get done, but that's a catch, that's at least a catch there.
I don't believe my client and Mr. Guller can be held responsible for something that the commission did not do.
Well, yeah, thank you. I was about to say that the issue before us is not so much whether it was one responsibility or another. The issue is a city ordinance. This is not even limited to a design guideline or a neighborhood guideline. This is a city ordinance. So a 12-foot driveway, predominantly to the side of a dwelling, of a private dwelling, home, is what the city has established. Now, any exceptions have to come through an application or, you know, some means of overturning or receiving an exception from the city of Columbia, not from this commission. We're bound to allowing or approving or denying applications or certain instances of design within a community by what are ordinances and guidelines. It's unfortunate. We understand. I think all of us empathize with your situation where it relates to the children. But as Ms. Fuller-Wilt said, any other instances that you hold as examples to match what you are hoping or wanting to maintain or retain would also be, as you said, in violation of city ordinance. Is there any other statement?
If I may, there's an exception, of course, built into the city ordinance, and my client's been put on notice, has received no notice from the city as far as a violation. I mean, there's this process, but he hasn't been fined in any way by the city. So you're suggesting that we file an appeal process through the city for an ordinance that they haven't actually, code enforcement hasn't actually.
No, that's not actually what I'm suggesting. What I'm suggesting is that driveway does fall within the purview of planning and DDRC based on city ordinances. That we, though, will not grant an exception outside of what the ordinance states. That's 12-foot driveway.
The ordinance has an exception in it. The ordinance itself has language for an exception. So if you find that there's an extraordinary circumstance, now if you don't, I understand, but you have purview, because if you're going by the ordinance, there's an exception in the ordinance.
We're not merely going by the ordinance. The guideline is based on the city ordinance. The guideline, it's still within a historic district. And
the guidelines for the historical district?
I'm sorry, this is only city ordinance language. There's no guideline here.
But he makes a point, you know, it does say unless a showing of extraordinary and exceptional conditions pertaining to the piece of property can be shown, blah, blah, blah. So I guess the real question is this an extraordinary and exceptional condition? And I think that's our decision. I don't see that's the case, I'm afraid. I guess, you know, what is the real remedy is going to be their issue. But, you know, he's pretty much taken up, it looks like, at least half, if not more, of his front yard with a driveway.
I believe this photo is a little deceptive from that angle. Again, I think other photos that we took from the front of the house were provided.
I'm sorry, those are in your packet. I forgot to put them in the PowerPoint. They're at the end of your packet.
There's no question that a portion of the driveway does cover the front of the house. I just don't believe it's accurate to say that it covers half the house.
Well,
I understand.
But the real question is it extra and exceptional, and that's the real question that we have to resolve.
I agree with you, Mr. Daniel. And I think that that our responsibility here is to look at whether those exceptions would lend to an approval of this situation as it is. I think we also, when we consider things here relevant to ordinances and exceptions that we might undertake, we have to consider precedent too. And certainly precedent has to be, you know, can set off a whole chain of circumstances and subsequent deviations from what the ordinances and guidelines are. So unless anyone has anything further to add from the commission, is there?
I would just say that I think the precedent issue kind of gets to the core of it. We've had other situations where things that have been built didn't come through the approval process, and in every case that I've been involved with, although, you know, we may personally empathize with what you've done and, you know, the situation you're in, I don't, as a commissioner, feel that I can. I think it would be on my part irresponsible to set the precedent that would become a very slippery slope if we allowed these in mea culpa and you know, searched for some sort of exception that I don't think exists.
However, in the guidelines, there's a lot of verbiage that says trying to strengthen the cultural and educational life of the city, make the city a more attractive and desirable place to live, making it safer for our children. I mean, I'm not trying to get you to sympathize with me. It's a valid point. Also, it does state that these goals should not be construed to restrict design creativity. Instead, they should be interpreted to encourage it.
Well, that's a conversation we could have had if you had come through the process.
If I had known about it.
Ignorance isn't an excuse.
That actually pertains to the DDRC and the responsibilities of the guidelines. And this, again, is ordinance language. It's not the guideline language.
Mm-hmm.
Just to be clear, there is a distinction between the two.
Yeah, I mean, we as a commission, I as a commissioner and as chairman, I mean, I can foresee someone wanting an exception to the ordinance which allows, for some exception in the language as it says, because they've got 4 vehicles instead of 2, or 6 kids instead of 4. I mean, we have to consider what the ordinance is. It's in black and white. We see that as the presiding piece of judgment upon which our decisions are made. As Mr. Daniel has said, it is now up to us to make a decision based on the relevance of the exception that you're asking for.
Respectfully, while I understand legal precedent and the slippery slope argument, I make it all the time, you can't eliminate the exception, and I feel that I can't imagine, I mean, people can, and they can come to you anytime with another application for an exception, but I feel that this warrants exception just as much as anything else. So I feel like you are eliminating the exception by not using it at all in a situation that involves children, that involves safety, that involves keeping a road safer, and that's just respectfully my belief, and we'll take it on to the higher appeal process if we have to for a determination, but I do feel that the exception's in there for a reason, and you all as commissioners have the authority to exercise your judgment, and I understand if you disagree, but I wanted to make that point.
I would just like to make a point as well that that is one item of 3, the ones you're talking about. There's also the talk about the visual impact on the house. That's item 2. And then item 3, being compatible with the building and the site and setting of the district. So there are multiple parts of this ordinance that speak to the width and where it's located.
Thank you, Ms. Ritchie.
That might be her opinion, but I do not believe that aesthetically takes away anything from the house. And as I've shown you, there are other, and again, you might say that those are in violation as well, but that is as classy a driveway as I think there can be, unless we want to put marble down. But that to me is an acceptable form per the ordinance is a concrete slab.
Well, let me, please go on, ma'am.
I have a question. I don't know if an applicant would be amenable to it, or even if the other commissioners would see it as an option. But in terms of the amount of concrete, are you all willing to break up the concrete and have more of, I call them driving strips. I don't know the official terms for them. Or is it all of nothing for you all?
Yeah. But I would assume that the ordinance talks about from where one strip ends and one begins. I mean, there are some, you're talking about just like tracks that go?
Yeah, grass, concrete strips.
If the ultimate goal is to be aesthetically pleasing with the neighborhood, I just don't see how
You'll see in that picture there's a combination of the two, and I don't think that really reads well. There's a house in there that has a combination of the strips.
We did see the gravel strips, yes, we did. Again, we're going to have to vote. You've mentioned that we are eliminating the exception. I do not believe that is so. So I am going to state, both for the record and for your edification, that we're not eliminating any exception. We are here to consider that exception as you've asked, and we will do so in whatever judgment we provide. We are bound to consider the ordinance. We are weighing that against the fact that this is more ordinance related than guideline related. However, both seem to abridge each other. So I think at this point we're going to ask for a motion. Is there anyone that would like to present it?
I would move that we deny based on Ordinance 17674, which requires a width of 12 feet of a parking area, and this exceeds that 12-foot maximum.
Okay, so a motion to deny the application for site improvement, or?
Let me also amend that too, and that based on the testimony of the applicant, although we see conditions that we could take into consideration, we don't see anything that would extend to a showing of extraordinary and exceptional conditions.
Thank you, Mr. Daniel. So we have an applicant or a motion to deny this current situation with the driveway at 1211 Shirley Street based on a consideration of lack of based on the consideration of exceptions as stated in the ordinance. Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? There being none, call the roll, please.
Mr. Bachnight?
Yes.
Mr. Broom?
Yes.
Mr. Daniel?
Yes.
Ms. Fuller-Wilt?
Yes.
Ms. Great? Yes. Mr. Heiler? Is gone. Mr. Savory?
Yes.
Mr. Nguyen?
Yes.
The motion passes.
Thank you. You're welcome. Gentlemen, as was stated in the beginning of our meeting tonight, and as you perhaps have stated or indicated here in your closing, any decision by this board or commission is appealable, okay, and there are avenues through which you may do so.
Fully aware. I appreciate it.
Okay.
Thank you.
So we are moving on to other business, and I thought perhaps it might be a good idea if we actually did do a formal motion for approval of the minutes, because
I was just going to do that. I knew because we blew through the consent agenda, so thank you. I was going to finish with that. Yes. Yeah. Very good. Thank you, sir. Do we have a second? We got a second. Any discussion? She said yes. Minutes are approved. Or, I'm sorry.
I was going to say for the record, I wasn't going to vote on them since I was not at the last meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you. So, all those in favor of approval of minutes from the last meeting, please raise your hands.
It passed.
Okay, thank you. Is there any further business, other business?
Very briefly, the only thing I had was 1001 Senate Street, the fire station, which came before this board some time ago. In fact, I'm not even sure who all was here when it
That was over a year ago.
Yeah. They are starting really to work now on that building, and one of the things that y'all had approved as part of their Bailey bill was that the doors would operate. Mm-hmm. They're having some issues with what is charmingly called man doors in the doors that come up with wind load, and trying to get those correct. So now they're exploring the option of having a storefront, and then the next bay would be a door that actually raises, and so alternating those. So we're working on making sure that the design of those reflects what was originally there in terms of horizontal lines and so on. But I just, since that was a condition, I wanted to float that out there before you all, let you know what was going on with it, and if anyone had any strong feelings on it.
It will have to come back to us?
They don't, unless
okay.
y'all feel like they need to. I just wanted to really keep you apprised. I think the design is going to be very important on the storefront.
Mm-hmm.
Store, so that's what we're working on. But if y'all feel strongly about it, we can ask them to come back to you.
As I remember, they did have outdoor dining in front of those, correct?
Right. That's right.
So, cool.
Okay. Thank you. That's all I had.
Thank you. Is there a motion to adjourn? Moved. Seconded. All those in favor, say aye. We are adjourned. I know. Thank you for everything you've contributed. And, yeah, you're right, I mean,
There's the child safety, they're gonna put, are they taking both children out of the car simultaneously? You only need
take
one
them out
car in
on
the
one
driveway.
side of the street, on the street side.